We're in the 19th lesson of the book of Proverbs, Proverbs chapter 16. Now, let me just catch you up on something. In chapters 1 through 9, that was a conversation between Solomon and his son. Chapters 1 through 9 was a conversation between Solomon and his son, where Solomon is trying to convince his son to stray away from all evil and not destroy his young life the way many people do, to run from the evils of this world. In chapter 10, actually began the Proverbs of Solomon. And in chapters 10 through chapters 15, through last week's lesson, Solomon's Proverbs are what we would call contrast proverbs, in which the second clause contrasts the first clause. And the clauses are separated by a conjunction of but or and, okay? And so there's a contrast. It's actually, in many cases, the exact opposite of what the first clause is saying is said in the second clause. Now, starting with chapter 16, we enter into a new set of proverbs that the second clause will either compare to the first clause or complete the thought in the first clause. So all the way through chapter 22, 16 through 22, basically all the proverbs complete or compare the second clause to the very first clause. And there are a few that are contrast, and we've got one in today's lesson that is a contrast, returns to the kind of verses that are in chapters 10 through 15. We've got one today, but for the most part, they compare or they complete. The clauses compare or complete what's being said by Solomon. Let's start off and we'll see that. The plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. Let's just understand what this is saying. You can make all the plans you want. You can devise everything you want, and you can even seek to do it. But guess what? The Lord has sovereign right over everything you do, and He has the last say. And if you do something that is against Him, His lips, His tongue will say to you, this is sin or this is good. This is evil or this is good. That's just the way it is. You can plan all you want, but the Lord is the one who is going to pronounce upon what you have decided to do as whether it is evil or it is good. Verse 2. All the ways of a man are clean in his own sight. Well, we understand that. Even evil people think their evil is okay. Evil people continue to do evil because they think it's a right thing to do and it's okay, and they have every right to do their evil. Good people, righteous people, think that they have every right to continue to do righteous things, and they do. All the ways of a man are clean in his own sight, but the Lord weighs the motives. The Lord weighs the motives. In other words, the Lord will speak in verse 1 about whether something is good or evil, but in verse 2, basically the same type of proverb compares and says, but the Lord's not looking at what you're doing on the outside. The Lord is looking at what is your motive on the inside. Now let me just explain what I'm talking about. Let's say that you come into a situation with someone else, some circumstance where this person that you're dealing with has within their means great wealth. Let's just say that. And most people who have great wealth do not know how to handle their money. Did you know that? They know how to make it, but they don't know how to keep it. They know how to make it, but they don't know how to invest it. And so along comes an investor that says, my business is investing money for people who make money, and I want to help you with your investments. And so through smooth talk, soft, sweet words, they convince you that you need to go into this type of investment or into this type of investment. And all along, after about a year, you go, well, I thought I was supposed to be making money here, but it looks like I didn't make any money. And then the second year comes, you go, I didn't make any money this year either. But lo and behold, I just noticed this. Look at how much commissions that this broker is making off. This broker made more money off of me than I made off of me. Then my account's made. And by about the fourth or fifth year, you're going, whoa, wait a minute. This broker is basically raping me because my money is going down because it's costing me more money to be investing with this broker than that he's making with me on the other side. And it seems like every time the end of the month comes around, some sort of trade is happening that is causing these commissions to be put, and the commissions are not even being covered by the investment. Okay. Now here's the problem. It's one thing if that broker is doing his best for you and he's just making poor choices. That's one thing. And I can forgive a broker for that because most brokers don't know what they're doing either. Got it? Because you realize the market is just a big old gambling place. Because we never know today what's going to happen tomorrow. All right? In fact, that's the reason why Solomon says, look after for what you're going to look after today. And look after the troubles of today, because today's got enough troubles of its own and you don't even know what's coming tomorrow. All right? Now, but if that broker, and if there's any brokers in here, I'm sorry. I'm not just picking out on you because I can go anywhere. I do not want to offend everybody all the time, just most of the time. Not all the time. I don't want to offend everybody. I got to be an equal opportunity offender. You know how that is? Because I need to step on everybody's toes because you don't feel convicted unless I step on your toes. And so you don't feel like I've done any good teaching unless I stepped on your toes. So I'm going to step on broker's toes today. Now, if the broker is thinking, okay, here's a good family, they won't ever know what I'm doing. I need to make a little more money because my Jaguar payment's not covered this month. I'm going to go make this trade and I make the commission. You remember all these movies that came out back in the 80s and 90s where finally everybody realized that brokers made commissions and they really didn't have to deal with their own money? And I remember in one of those movies, there's these two guys and two brokers, and they had a bet that they could take a man off the street, a homeless guy off the street, and make him a success in the financial market, and they could take a real successful financial guy and destroy his life. And so they did. And I remember one statement in that movie was, and the best part about it all is while this one's coming up, we're making money on commissions, and while this one's going down, we're making money on commissions. Whether they win or whether they lose, we make money on commissions, okay? If the broker, this is just one example, knows that he is just lining his pocket with your money, whether you lose or win at all, that is a bad thing, because the Lord is looking at the heart of that broker, and that is a sin. If you say, well, he's a broker, he gets to do that. Yes. If he's doing it and making mistakes that are unintentional, that's one thing. I'm not really giving him a pass, but that's one thing. That's time to change brokers. But if he's doing it on purpose, that's time to file a complaint because he sinned against you. And I see a lot of this. I see many of you who come, and many in the church who bring their financial stuff to me, and they say, this guy, he says I made money last year, but all the money went to him for commissions. I made no money. In fact, it cost me money for him to make his commissions. And that is true. If you package up something and you're trying to sell it to somebody, and at the heart it's for your own personal financial gain and their personal financial loss, you have sinned. And God is looking at the heart to see how you think about it. That's where the sin is. Well, verse 3. Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Are your works and plans in agreement with the Lord's works and plans? That's the question. Or are you doing something where you want the Lord to come along and rubber stamp what you have decided and say, yes, my child, I'll approve of this. Here's my seal, Jesus, across it. It doesn't work that way. What if that thing is ungodly to Jesus? What is that something that he does not have plans for your life? You're asking him to stamp it without even considering. You're asking him to approve what you want. You may pray, say, Lord, in the name of Jesus, I command this to happen. You can do all you wanted to command in, but guess what? If it is not in God's will, it is not going to happen. Period, the end. He is not going to rubber stamp something you commanded to happen. Doesn't work that way. Just doesn't work that way. I tell you this, it's a whole lot easier to get God's approval for you to do something that he's planned than it is to get his help in cleaning up your messes. Did you catch that? It has been my experience of 41 years in the ministry. 41 years in the ministry. Oh, where have the decades gone? That if you dig a hole, God will let you fill that hole up by yourself. And then once you learn how to fill the hole up by yourself, then he'll start blessing you. But he doesn't start blessing you while you're digging the hole. Because if he's blessing you while you're digging the hole, what do you do with the hole? You just keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Did you hear about how the elephant got out of the hole? Have y'all ever heard that one? You know how the elephant got out of the hole he fell into? He started messing with the dirt, and the dirt would come down and he'd stomp it down until he finally just dug himself a way out and walked out of it. Instead of trying to climb out, he just kind of brought the dirt over underneath his feet, tamped it down to where finally he was high enough to get out. Smart elephant. Some of y'all need to take lessons from the elephant. Because you've dug holes that you can't get out of. Yeah, you can. One step at a time, one day at a time, one little bit of dirt at a time, you can get out of it. But it is easier to get God's permission whenever you're on his plan and his approval than it is to get him to help you dig out of your hole. Verse number 4. The Lord has made everything for its own purpose. Even, now catch this, even the wicked for the day of evil. Now the first 3 verses were comparison verse, Proverbs. Now here's the first one that's a completion proverb. This is a completion. Solomon completes the thought in the first clause by what's happening in the second clause. This proverb is very shocking in some religious circles because this proverb does not fit some of the theology that is out there rampant today. There are people who teach that God cannot look upon sin. God cannot look upon sin. God's eyes are too pure to look upon sin. Surely God cannot look upon sin. Well, if he's God and he's all-knowing, he's all-seeing, he's all-providing, he doesn't see your sin, there's a hiccup with this all stuff with God. God is all-seeing. He knows it all. He sees it all. He owns it all. Then all, how much is all? Is there any meaning in words anymore? Does all mean all? Or does all mean just a part? And in fact, some teach that he can't look on sin. However, back in the last chapter, the contrast passage, 15:3, Proverbs 15:3, it says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching evil and the good. Well, that's interesting. So God sees everything. Yes, he made everything. And here in chapter 16:4, he says, the Lord has made everything, even the wicked for the day of evil. And that is true. The Lord made the good and he made the evil. Over in John chapter 1, verse 3. John chapter 1, verse 3 says this, all things came into being by him, and apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. Well, if somebody created something that God didn't create, I want to meet that somebody that created it because I need to worship him. Because God created it all. Everything, good and evil. And what he did was he created everything. And then he said to the people who were going to belong to him, he said to those who want to enter into a relationship with him, he said to those who want to be part of him, there are things that I want you to do that I'm going to call good, and you do the good things. And I want you to shun, I want you to stay away from, I want you to run from the things that I am telling you is evil. Now, in this ancient book, as I heard it mentioned last week, this ancient book that we call the Bible, that needs to be updated to modern days, where people are quoting just one or two verses out of the ancient book, I invite them to do something that is very profound. Read it and see if it doesn't change your heart. See if the reason why this ancient book, older than any of the other books that we have. Listen, the Old Testament that we have copies, not the original scripts, but we have copies of the Old Testament that are 700 years older than the other two oldest manuscripts we have. Do you know what those other two oldest manuscripts are? Anybody got any idea? Anybody got any idea? Literature, high school, literature, Greek, Iliad, and the Odyssey. The oldest two that we have. The oldest manuscripts we have of the Iliad and the Odyssey are 700 years newer than the oldest scripts of the Old Testament that we have. And to put that into perspective, the Iliad, 30% of it, we don't even know what it said because we don't even have copies. That the oldest copies don't have 30% of it. 30% of what we read today in the Iliad is made up by somebody else, not Homer. Somebody else finished him. And almost 40% of the Odyssey is made up. And the closest we have is 7. We have an ancient manuscript in the Old Testament that has been handed down, that has been protected. For those of you who went through the discipleship material that I did for those 12 weeks, when we got to the Bible, I showed that to you, how it's been an unbroken chain of protection of this ancient book that will change your heart if you just read it. Oh yeah. You can pick up any book and you can grab one sentence out of it and you can think it is a racial book. I can do that with any book. I can do that with Abraham Lincoln's writings. I have the entire set of the writings of Abraham Lincoln. Every letter that he wrote, that we have, every newspaper article, everything that was written while he was in office. I have all of that. And believe me, on every page you can pull a sentence out and say, boy, that's not the way Abraham Lincoln thought. That's not what Abraham Lincoln did. He had another side to him that wasn't good. Well, maybe so. Maybe he did. But not so with the ancient script called the Holy Bible that we use. Do not let anyone misunderstand. The God in the Bible, the God in the ancient script, told us what is good and what is bad, and we are to stay away from what is bad if we're in a relationship with the world. We cannot change the world that we live in. We cannot change it as a whole. Evil is going to be evil, but we can win one at a time to the Lord. One at a time. I can win one at a time, and you can win one at a time by simply saying, read God's Word. His Word will not return void in their life, and it will change their hearts. It will. Everyone who is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Pride in heart. Abomination to the Lord. You know there's good pride and there's bad pride. There's good pride and there's bad pride. Assuredly, he will not be unpunished. It's a completion. If you have the bad pride in your heart, you will not go unpunished. You will be punished by the Lord because you are a stench in the nostril of the Lord. If you are proud in heart, you will have problems in the life. And it will occur in the Lord's timing. Those of us watching you, they're up on your high horse. We know that the Lord is going to correct you. It may not be when we think you ought to be corrected, but it will be when the Lord corrects you. And the Lord will allow you to continue to be proud in your heart and to do evil in your heart until you have enough record in the record books that you will never change your mind. And then you will be the one who will be standing before Him at the great white throne judgment. And He will say to you, go and serve the one you served while on earth. Go and enter into the lake of fire. The only way you can rid yourself of the punishment that is to come is to lay that pride down and enter into a personal relationship with the Lord. A personal relationship with the Lord. Stop thinking that you're better than God, in other words. Verse 6, by loving kindness and truth, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord, one keeps away from evil. Now, I want to tell you, the first phrase of that is really translated wrong. That first clause should be translated from the Hebrew, by mercy and truth, he shall atone for iniquity. But the problem is our English writers translated this after Christ had already come. But the Hebrew was written before Christ came to atone for our sins. So it really should talk about, by mercy and truth, he shall atone for our iniquity or for our sins. And he is going to do that in Solomon's future. It's in our past, but it's in Solomon's future. And he's saying, and by fear of the Lord, one keeps away from evil. By fear or by worship of the Lord, he will keep us away from evil because we have entered into a relationship with him. And by mercy and by truth, he has made us at one with him. Verse 7. When a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Even makes his enemies to be at peace with him when his ways are pleasing to the Lord. In other words, whenever we are in tune with our Savior and our Deliverer, the things we say as the Lord would have us present them to others will be pleasing to those who are our enemies. This week on Thursday, I was sitting in a doctor's office. There were 3 seats sitting to my right. Every other seat in the waiting room was taken up by other people. In comes a man with a little white cap on and a big old long black covering. Followed behind him with 2 women who have black things around their face. Only their eyes are looking through, all covered from head to toe, and their hands are covered and inside and all that. I couldn't help myself. I turned to him. And of course, my wife is beside herself, and my daughter thinks I'm crazy because I'm fixing to talk to a Muslim. I'm not afraid of Muslims. And I said to him, are you doing all right today? He said, no, I'm not. It was a kind of broken English. And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, you here for test? He said, yeah, I am. I said, well, my prayers are with you today. He said, surely the prayers of Allah are with me. I said, no, I'm not going to pray to Allah. I'm going to pray for you to God. He said, thank you. I said, are those your girls, your daughter and your wife? He said, no, those are my wives. I said, oh. I said, are you not fearful of calling them your wives? 2 wives in state of Texas? I said, it's against the law to have 2 wives. He said, but my law, my God says that I can have 2 wives. I can have 4 wives. I said, yeah, but that's not here in the state of Texas. How long have you been here? He said, I've been here about 9 months. I said, and no one's questioned you about that? He said, no. I said, oh. I said, where do you get the instruction that you can have 2 wives in the state of Texas? And I'm being as sweet as I can be. And my wife and my daughter are about to bite on nails, okay? He says, it's in our holy book, the Quran. And I said, oh, where's it in the Quran? He looked at me and said, I don't know. I said, well, how do you know it's in the Quran? He said, well, I've been taught that. I said, and you've never read it for yourself? And he says, no, I've never read it for myself. And I said, okay. Well, it's in Surah chapter 26. Go read Surah chapter 26. That's where you're going to find it. He said, oh, you know the Quran? And I said, yes. He says, you worship Allah? I said, no, I do not worship Allah. I said, I am a person who is of the people of the book that Surah chapter 26 also mentions to you if you'll read the entire chapter. And it tells you that if you don't understand something that's in your Quran, go to the people of the book before this book and they will explain it to you. And I'm one of those people. I know and I have studied both your book and my book. And I would be glad to explain to you anytime, any day, anywhere about what is going on and the differences in what is right and what is wrong. And I pulled out my business card and I said to him, I will be glad to talk to you at any time at all. Please call me. Let me share with you about the differences and the things that are there. And I can actually open up the Quran and show you where things are. I said, I have it pretty well memorized. I know what is truth and I know what is not truth. And he looked at me and his eyes were just incredibly gentle and incredibly kind. And he said, thank you very much. And they called his name and off he went. And the two women are doing this to me. I'm thinking, they're thinking, one of them's fixing to lose. Okay. I don't want everyone to laugh at that. I mean, it's kind of funny, but the issue is there's a problem here. I was as kind as I could be. I think I made him my friend. I think I will hear from him. I think I will let you know, believe me. I will let you know. But a man's ways may be pleasing to the Lord. And if we're doing in the ways of the Lord, even our enemies will be at peace with us. You see, I didn't attack him. I just asked him. That's like you do a person who's an atheist. You let an atheist talk long enough, and they go, well, that doesn't make sense. What I just said didn't make sense. The problem is we try to jump in and we try to teach them something. And what we have to do is just ask questions. So if they keep making the round and they go, well, that didn't make sense, did it? Well, anyway, well, that didn't make sense. Well, what about, well, that didn't make sense. That's the way we do it. Verse 8, better is a little with righteousness than great income with injustice. There were two verses over in chapter 15 of last week that we looked at. Some of y'all missed it. I hope you get that lesson. Verse 15, chapter 15, verse 16 said, Solomon said, better is little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and turmoil with it. It is better to have nothing and a great relationship with the Lord than to have great wealth and people know it. And every time you turn around, somebody's trying to sue you for your wealth or get you to give something to somebody out of your wealth. It's better in the turmoil. And listen, everybody has a project they think is the very best. Everybody. And I'm going to tell you, if you've got great wealth, you've got to decide what you're going to give to and what you're not going to give to. And you cannot be distracted by those things that do not fall within what you've decided is the boundaries of what you give. You can't give to everything. You can't. I'm often amazed. There are some people that they're just attracted to money. I mean, they're not attracted to money. Money's attracted to them. It just flows in. Just flows in. They can come up with some harebrained idea, put it in motion, get it going, then sell the company 4 or 5 months later for crazy, stupid money, okay? Just crazy, stupid money. And they turn around, next thing you know, they're giving to the church for this, and giving to the church for that, and giving to the Lord for this, and giving to the Lord for that, and then they're making crazy, stupid money again. I don't have that ability. I don't. I don't have the ability to go out and make crazy, stupid money. Just crazy. No, I just don't. And the Lord knows it's good that I don't. The Lord knows it's good that I don't. In fact, my wife and I have finally decided it's about time for us to have a estate sale before we die. Because we got some things we need to get rid of. We got a whole set, 13 of everything of this Denby pottery that's in our China club. You know what Denby is, Miss Mother Mary? Yes, I guess you do. And it's just gorgeous. I mean, it was actually more expensive than our China was. And I have not eaten off of that stuff one time in 36 years. What in the world do we need it taking up cabinet space? And we've got other stuff. We're going to go around and start collecting stuff that cost us an arm and a leg. And if it goes for $1 to give to the church, glory be to God. Listen, back in 1979, the plates were like $79 a piece. I mean, and we have 13 of them, okay? No telling, I don't care how much they're worth. Somebody else needs them, then the money that we can get off of it, we're going to give to the Lord. Yeah, and we ain't even got a building project going on right now. Can you believe that? And we're already thinking it's time to get rid of some stuff and give it to, and downsize. Downsize. Do you know how you have to do when you have all that stuff? You have to dust it. And then when you move it, you have to pack it carefully. You have to waste money on boxes and packing bubbles and all of that. I want to move it one more time. Right out of my house. And as far as I'm concerned, it could go to the edge of the sidewalk. But I'd rather get $1 for it and give it to the Lord. It is better not to have all this stuff and have a great relationship with the Lord. And by the way, I think that's really interesting. It took my wife and I a long time to realize that the more we give, we cannot outgive God. We cannot outgive God. Yeah, we cannot. He's always giving to us in a miraculous way. Over and above and around everybody else that we know. He's taking care of us in a miraculous way. He better, because I'm fixing to get old real fast now. And you never know what's coming. Lord, I keep worrying. Okay, Lord, thank you for this little pot of money. I wonder what's fixing to happen. Is my transmission on my car fixing to go out? Am I going to need a bypass surgery? What's going to happen? The Lord does bless us for reasons ahead of time. So we can turn around and say, thank you, Lord, that we have it. Thank you, Lord, that we have it. We made the mistake of going to an emergency clinic, a standalone emergency clinic not too long ago. To walk in the door cost $1,000. Just to walk in the door. And then to have a CAT scan and something else, the bill came out like $4,000. I was in there like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, okay? And I said to Kay when we walked out, when we finally got the bill, I said, well, Kay, shame on us for not asking what it's going to cost. But the Lord will provide because He has provided. So we called Him up and said, okay, we won't pay this. Since you're now saying, you told us when we walked in that we were in network, but now we find out that we were not in network. What can we pay? And lo and behold, we got it down to 1/3 of what the original bill was. So do not be afraid of that. But it's better not to have a lot and have injustice just, oh man. Oh, chapter 15, verse 17 says, 15:16 said, better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasures and turmoil within it. 15:17 said, better is a dish of vegetables where love is than a fattened ox where hatred with it. Yeah, it's better. Eat your soup with love around the table. And when there's somebody else that shows up, just add a little water to the soup and keep going. Now, when the fatted calf is gone, you can't add water to the fatted calf. It won't stretch that way. You're going to have to add some more bread or something like that to sop up the whatever's left over. In either case, the key to contentment in this situation is to fear and worship the Lord. Verse 9. The mind of man plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. Absolutely. That's exactly what happens. This proverb has the same thoughts found back in 16:1, the very first proverb of this chapter. The plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. In both verses, the Lord is the sovereign person who reigns over everything that is said, no matter what happens. It is if man's plans are evil and his heart is hardened by that evil, if that man's plans is hardened by evil, what the Lord is going to do is He is going to help that person do his evil. Did you know that? And if a person's desires are for righteousness, the Lord is going to help that person do righteousness. Do you know why? The Lord helps the good and the Lord helps the bad, so that the record books of evil are completed, that when they are evil, the Lord is not going to put anything in the way of that record book being completed. The Lord is going to direct the path. He will direct the path of the evil one. If he desires to do evil, He will continue to allow him to do evil, and He'll direct that path. And if you desire to do righteous, He will do that. He will keep that going. The Lord often uses the path of the evil one to chastise the righteous. Did you know that? That's the story of the northern and the southern kingdom. And at the same time, on the other side, the Lord uses and directs the paths of the righteous to correct the evil. So both go in both directions. God uses who He wants, for what He wants, for when He wants. Verse 10. A divine decision is in the lips of the king. His mouth should not err in judgment. Well, we know what the word divine means. It means from heaven above, doesn't it? Well, we got a problem here, a real problem. That word divine is not supposed to be the word divine. That word divine is supposed to be the word divination, which means magic and sorcery. Well, that just changed the whole meaning of the whole verse. One says if you've got a divine revelation from the Lord, make sure that whenever you're giving that revelation to the people and using it to judge your people, that you do not sin. Now it's as if wherever you got that divine revelation by some form of magic or sorcery that is sin in God's eyes, do not use what you have learned in that sinful way of getting an answer unjustly as a sin towards those people that you're ruling over. It doesn't matter. You can pick up a book that happens to be written by ungodly Marxist Lenin people. But don't rule your people by it, the Lord is saying. Do not pick up a socialist book and use it as your game plan to rule the people. Rule the people by God's righteousness. Don't pick up a book by a man. Pick up the holy ancient book of God and rule by that instead. Verse 11, a just balance and scales belong to the Lord. All the weights of the bag are His concern. Weights of the bag. Do you remember the scales on either side? Yeah. What people would do, they'd have a weight. Someone would come and say, I would like a pound of crawfish. So they'd take 1 pound and they'd put it on the scales and they'd start grabbing crawfish that are crawling all over creation, and they put them in there in a little bag to weigh out a pound of crawfish, and then you pay for a pound of crawfish. The problem is the dealer had taken that pound weight, and behind it in the secret, he had gone to the sandpaper and he had sanded off some of the weight. So now the pound weight doesn't weigh a full pound, but he's using it to measure a pound out. He is stealing from the people who want to buy a pound, but they're not really getting a pound for a pound's worth of money. Remember my story about the man who would order in 64 yards of mulch, but he would sell out 82 to 85 yards of mulch by making sure the 1 yard bucket wasn't completely full when he delivered it. So he would actually steal from the folks. They would pay for a yard, but they would get much less than a yard. He was stealing from them. Listen, the just balance and scales belong to the Lord, and He is concerned about every weight that's in that scales. Now just take that and just use that in every circumstance of life out there. You can use it wherever you want to use it because it fits. No matter what you're trying to do, you need to understand God is concerned about that everyone who buys something or uses something, that it is equal and it is just for all. Verse 12.